I want to first bring in our next guest, Corey Redicop, CEO of the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. Corey, thanks for joining us. What do you make of the Prime Minister's move today?
Well, hey, Dan, nice to be with you. I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum, or hopefully shouldn't. So if removing the tariffs is going to get us a step closer to a better CUSMA deal or some trade stability, then it's positive. If we've just disarmed for nothing in return, then it's concerning. But the Prime Minister said that Trump on that call earlier in the week assured him that making this move would kickstart negotiations. So we need to get to a place where we have some stability and we protect the CUSMA exemptions and the CUSMA trade deal. So if this helps us get along those way, I'm happy to see it happen. And I know many of my members in Langley and many BC businesses have been feeling those retaliatory tariffs, in some cases even more than the American ones in the first place.
Let's get to Reg and Chetwynd. Reg, thanks for waiting. What do you make of the move?
Well, generally, I support what Mr. Carney's been doing and trying to stick handle, using the hockey fund with all the dealings with Trump. My big concern comes to some of the early pronouncements when back in January when they talk about water. Water, to me, seems to be the holy grail. Trump's pronounced on that and said he's quite interested. We've got the Columbia River Treaty close to completion. We've got interest in Alberta about moving water. We've got municipalities talking about moving water from municipal up in the Peace, from pipelines from the Peace, and the same in Alberta. So my big concern is, what's the deal on water? How is BC itself going to reassert the BC Water Protection Act to ensure that that's not on the table? And be interested in what your panelists have to say, and look forward to hearing what the government of BC has to say about it.
Reg, thank you very much for your call. Reg and Chetwynd. Corey Redicop, does water come up in any discussions you have with your members?
I mean, here in the chamber, here in our business community, we're much more concerned on business and inputs and manufacturing and food processing. I mean, I know we've got. I know it's tempting to look at water or electricity as Premier Ford often talks about. I think what we want to be doing is figuring out how do we move towards a more predictable and a more predictive relationship. I think those would be deemed nuclear options, and they're probably deemed that for a reason. So we shouldn't be I don't think we should be jumping to those steps too far. So I'm hopeful that, I mean, it sounds like the Prime Minister has been months since they've had a contact with President Trump. So it sounds like they did that this week. They have another call apparently booked. Hopefully we're moving in those right directions. Because I mean, if this gets us closer, then that's helpful, because a lot of businesses, they've been looking for inputs, whether it's bolts or screws or joists or whatever, plastics, whatever it might be. Sometimes you can't find them in the same quantities or the same specifications that you need. So businesses here, look around your community. There are businesses that have been impacted by these counter tariffs. So this will hopefully help bolster those a little bit, which have had a really hell of a go for the last few months.
Nash is joining us from Vancouver. Nash, what do you think?
I just kind of disillusioned the provincial and federal government. They were talking about being real tough guys, elbows up, and let's give it to the Americans. It's like they folded like a cheap suit on every chance they got. And the other point I wanted to make is if the forestry industry is losing money, shut it down. How much taxes can we keep putting in to support a dying industry? Maybe it's time to start building weapons and start selling them around the world and helping our tech industry.
Nash,
talks all the time. They do nothing.
I think Nash, if I could put to you, we've also heard similar concerns from other governments of different stripes that were accused of not doing enough for the forestry sector across decades. What would you do for those workers then if you suggest shutting down the mills and putting the industry out? What do you do with the workers?
There's hundreds of millions of dollars of training money that the government's giving out anyways. They can sign up for those programs if they qualify.
If they qualify.
You can't keep supporting dying industry. I know that's a socialist agenda up here in Canada, but if it's not working, let it go.
All right. Nash, appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Corey Redicop, where are you, if you can give us some on-the-ground examples of the members that you're dealing with, where are they really feeling the pinch point of this trade war?
I think there's the obvious ones. I mean, if you're exporting down to the States, that's the obvious one. You now are figuring out do you have the margins where you can absorb some of this? Can your customers take higher prices? So that's the obvious one. The thing that we're talking about today is those retaliatory tariffs. I mean, I was just meeting with a plastic company yesterday, which they can't find the specifications they need to produce the plastics products that they make, so they have to get those from the States. There's no one's making them anywhere else, so they're having to figure out, well, will our customers pay a 25-35% premium now for that? We had a lumber company I met a little while ago who gets their joists that are made, and they go from Edmonton to Oregon, then back up here. I mean, and that's, of course it does. We've been 40 years of integrating our economies. It's meant to be done that way so that we're as productive as we can be. But there's no other option. The only Canadian manufacturer suddenly has everyone knocking at their door, and they can't meet the demand. So either you don't get the joists, so we aren't building the housing we all want, or you have to get them from the States. And then what does that mean for pricing? So I think they're definitely in our community, the exporters, that's obvious, and they need to get some certainty here, and hopefully can figure out the CUSMA compliance. The importers, this announcement today will help them. I mean, I think what's flying under the radar, next Friday the de minimis rules go away, so that's for all your small scale online e-commerce or your small retailers. They're all now going to have to be caught up in tariffs and CUSMA compliance, which they never had before. So that's really concerning for the small business community for sure. So there's a lot of fronts on this, and we had a little bit of stability there. We had, after Liberation Day or whatever the Trump president called it, we at least knew what we were dealing with, and then we saw again more changes and more changes today. So we just need to get to a point where we can actually focus on doing business, because I can tell you, Dan, the amount of money and time and oxygen going into figuring this out and compliance and navigating the whole thing, it's dizzying, and all of that would be better spent growing jobs and growing the economy here.
Scott writes us to say, what we need to understand as Canadians is that the new U.S. tariffs make it more expensive to manufacture south of the border. We can import the same inputs tariff-free, manufacture in Canada, and then export once into the U.S. under our existing CUSMA agreement, avoiding all tariffs. That makes Canada the cheaper place to manufacture. Corey, is that a realistic option? We do know that when it comes to manufacturing, that can take years, if not occasionally a decade or so, to get a warehouse or a factory set up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss, and I think the president misses too. You're not going to stand up an entire new steel industry or double the size of the American car industry without years or decades and billions, or not tens of billions of dollars. Those decisions aren't going to be made before in 18 months before he loses the midterm elections or within this term. So and that's the challenge we're seeing, is that we have lots of people, lots of businesses are looking, okay, where can I get this input from a Canadian manufacturer? And those manufacturers are trying to figure out how do I make more? How do I spin more of this stuff out? But that takes time, and it's not a matter of just flipping a switch and suddenly you have a new warehouse or you have a new production line. So that's the challenge we're seeing. I think businesses certainly are still looking to make sure how we onshore more of that. Businesses certainly are looking at how do we get more Canadian options. And I would your listeners on the consumer side, keep those elbows up. I mean, you need to be supporting Canadian manufacturers, Canadian products. It is being noticed. I think Minister Callan said it is being noticed in the States that we're not traveling there, we're not buying as much from there. So I mean, it's important that we keep doing that on the consumer side. It's just the businesses, they need to make sure that they're keeping their doors open, and anything we can do to lower costs for them is important for all of us.
On a local and provincial level, what sort of conversations are you having with City of Langley, Langley Township, and the province around any way to make things a bit easier for businesses and your members?
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, and I appreciate Minister Callan's comments earlier on the call here, but they might want to look at home first. There's lots of things the province of BC could be doing to be lowering costs, to be making it easier to do business in BC, reducing the amount of barriers. I mean, I'm just dealing with businesses, chatting with a few businesses just this week about how they're going to literally file their plastics registration, and later on in the fall, all these businesses are going to have to start doing their pay transparency reports. I mean, the number of paperwork and filings and documents that businesses have to do. That, again, if we're talking about time spent on compliance, that's all time that someone has to be paid to do, which could, again, be making the bottom line a bit stronger and maybe growing jobs. So the federal government, I mean, it's been, 5-6 months since the election. We don't have one Canadian economy yet. We haven't really, July 1st came and went. We haven't really seen the action that we were promised on some of those, breaking down trade barriers barriers and building infrastructure. It sounds like we're getting there, but let's get that ball moving. And to the province, and I think all levels of government need to be looking critically at what are we doing? Is this actually needed at a time when the entire trade and economic landscape has shifted? And I think the board's been reset, and it's time now for us to be looking at: do we need this regulation? Does this piece of red tape have to happen? Is this report a nice to have, or is it actually going to help us achieve anything meaningful? And if it's not, let's get rid of it for the time being, so that our businesses can focus on navigating what has been an unprecedented, that word gets used a lot, but it's been an unprecedented time for anyone trying to do business in Canada, let alone internationally.
And to clarify, when it comes to provincial trade barriers, I believe the Prime Minister promised to lower federal barriers amongst trade. It is going to take a lot longer, I think, between the provinces when it comes to those rules. Corey Redicott, we're going to wrap it up there. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, and it will never be boring as we continue to navigate this, and we'll check in with you another time. Thank you.
Yeah, take care, Dan.